Oh, it's so good to be free.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Homestead Challenge. Today I have a really exciting collaboration. I'm actually working with 16 other bloggers today in a sourdough collaboration. So if you are looking for sourdough inspiration, then you have found the right place. So I chose today to actually make Irish soda bread. So that's actually an unleavened bread, so you don't need sourdough at all to make it. But adding the sourdough will add a little bit of that good sourdough tangy flavor, as well as all of the good cultures and good stuff for your gut that are in sourdough. And the reason why I'm doing this is because right now my sourdough starter is very sad. So I'm in my first trimester of pregnancy and I just really haven't been feeling so great. So I have been neglecting this poor girl. She's not as bubbly as normal. She's just very sad. So this is the great kind of recipe to do when your sourdough starter is really not looking so happy. You really want it bubbly and smelling great in order to make bread that's going to rise correctly. But any kind of sourdough discard recipe like this one here will be great for the times that maybe you've neglected your sourdough just a little bit. So with most things here on the Homestead Challenge, I'm making this for the first time ever. I don't even think I've ever had regular Irish soda bread, but I have a feeling I'm going to like it. We are just going to do this thing and hopefully we succeed. My goal here is to show you that sourdough isn't scary. If I can do this and we can do it on the first try, then you know it's not so bad and you can do it too. So if you want to follow along for more beginner homesteading inspiration, please subscribe and let's just get right into the recipe. So I have everything laid out here, and if you can't follow along with all the ingredients, I actually will have my blog linked in the description box below. And that will have all of the whole recipe and ingredients and everything like that. And that will also contain all of the other recipes from the 16 other bloggers there as well. So first we're going to start by mixing our wet ingredients. So I have my sad sourdough starter here. Usually I transfer it to another bowl when it's getting this crusty, but I've been really having a rough time. So we're just going to use her up and she'll be happy. I really find that it gets happier the more you use it. So that is what we're going to do. We have 1 cup of our sourdough starter here. Set her to the side. And then we have a 1/2 cup buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, you can substitute it for regular milk mixed with lemon, but regular buttermilk is the best option. I have 2 tablespoons butter. And 1 egg. So we are just going to whisk all of this together. My sourdough starter right now is extra thick, so I'm just gonna whisk this along. And then I'm going to set this to the side and I am going to mix the dry ingredients. All right, so I'm going to take a larger bowl here and we're going to start with 2 cups of flour. And I guess I should have mentioned I already have my oven preheated to 400. So if you haven't done that, go do that now. The good thing with this recipe too is it only takes 1 day, where a lot of sourdough recipes, you're waiting for it to rise overnight, but this one we're just going to make and bake right away. And that's the kind of thing that I like, quick and easy. So next we are going to add in a 1/2 cup of rolled oats, 2 teaspoons baking powder, I love these wet jars, but they're really hard to open. A 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, tablespoon of sugar, and last but not least, 1 teaspoon salt. I really like to use coarse sea salt. I always feel like it gives the best flavor to any of my baked goods. Just gonna stir that up. Now, I'm going to make sure I don't get anything in there. We're going to start adding the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients. I'm just gonna add it all at once because I'm not very coordinated. So we are going to start mixing this together and make sure it's well combined, and eventually it will form a ball of dough. If it ends up being way too wet and it's not forming a ball of dough, you can add more flour. And if it ends up forming a ball that's way too shaggy and not smooth like a typical ball of dough would be, then you could add more buttermilk. Like with most bread, I think I'm gonna have to get in here with my hands. Sometimes I think it's not gonna be wet enough, but then once you start working with your hands and warming it up, it does form a ball. It smells a lot sweeter than most bread that I've ever made before. So I am actually really excited to try this. Let's see if I have any remaining buttermilk in here. A couple drops. So here's how we're looking so far. We are forming a ball, even though I didn't think we were gonna get there. It's also different than normal bread because it has the oats in it. So those are falling off, and I keep thinking that it's just shaggier, but it's just the oats. All right, so I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of flour down on my surface now. Trying not to wake up my toddler that's napping. And I'm going to knead it a little bit. You don't need to knead this a ton because it's not rising. Honestly, that looks pretty good to me. So now we are going to lightly flour our baking sheet. I'm actually using a ceramic baking sheet just because I have it and I love to use it. So I don't really need to flour mine. If you were using a regular baking sheet with parchment paper over top, then you would want to put a little bit of flour on that just to make sure it doesn't stick at the bottom. I'm gonna set my dough right here. And then I'm actually going to take a knife and score an X on the top. Looks like a happy little ball right there. So the final step is to just brush the top with a little bit of buttermilk. What that does, I think it'll just help make it nice and golden brown. We're going to pop it in the oven for 35 to 40 minutes until it's nice and golden brown, and then it will be ready. Well, then it'll have to rest, and then it will be ready to eat. So that was so easy. I'm very excited to see how this turns out. With any bread product, I found that sadly, even though you want to dig into it right away, it's best to let it rest until it fully cools, or about 15 minutes. It's not going to be fully cooled by then, but if you're anything like me, then you can't wait that long. And since this is a little bit of a sweeter bread, it actually is going to pair well with butter, honey, or jam. And I actually have some local products to me that I'm going to be trying out here in a minute with it. So I guess it's time to let it rest. All right, so it is time to dig in. It's still steaming, so probably should have waited a little bit longer, but I just cannot wait, especially while pregnant. I just need bread all the time. Just gonna start off with a little bit of butter so I can see what this tastes like since I've never had it before. Crumbly. Pretty good. I think it'll be really good with the jam and honey. So that is a very simple sourdough recipe for Irish soda bread. If you're watching this shortly after I film it, then it's actually almost St. Patrick's Day, so that is another Great excuse to use your sourdough in some Irish cooking. As I said, this is a collaboration with 16 other homesteaders, 16 other bloggers. They are going to all be linked below, and it's really cool because they range in experience from beginner like me all the way to seasoned experts. So there's going to be some great recipes and inspiration there. And I think that my toddler's going to want to try some now. So don't forget to subscribe for more beginner inspiration, and sláinte.
Oh, it's so good to be free. Your rules don't apply to me, no. I blow away all the pressure.